you watch the recording, see what was in the chat box, so you have a missing element. It's always worth coming to them live.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Sam. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matthew. Before I kind of start, I just wanted to give a bit of a backdrop to how I came to be here, and also a bit of a backdrop to the content that I'm going to share with you this afternoon. So I set up a business on Bewley River in 2003. At the time, we were passionate about outdoor activities, particularly canoeing and kayaking. And me and a friend from university thought it would be a good idea to share that passion with other people, and a few flyers around the New Forest. And turns out people would come and do these things. This is before websites was kind of almost default. And then over the years, we've grown that initially by employing friends and working with colleagues, and over time, having to become a bona fide employer, proper business. New Forest Activities became incorporated in 2010, and here we are 11 years later. It feels quite significant, really, what we've been able to create. At the moment, we've about 15 whole-time permanent staff. 7 of those at the moment are apprentices, and Holly and her team look after them really well for us. And then the other kind of 8, 9 are permanent staff, about 50-50 split between operations and admin, really. And then obviously in the summer months, we do grow significantly. Being an outdoor activity provider, we do require lots of part-time, hourly and short-term contract staff to help us grow our business. And one thing that we realize now, probably more than ever before, is how important it is to have a really strong team behind you, because no matter how keen you are as an entrepreneur or how driven you are as a business owner, you only have a certain number of hours in the day, and you can only do a certain amount of stuff. So if you want to grow significantly, if you want to scale, you need to bring people into your business, and you need to bring people into your business that you can trust to work without having to be micromanaged. Because if you start micromanaging people, then you kind of might as well have done it yourself, and you've got to give that freedom and flexibility. And I think is my hypothesis rather, I think a lot of small businesses particularly struggle with both of those things. They struggle to recruit people that they can trust and they really can empower to run their business for them. And they also struggle to kind of let go and let other people do the work that's needed. And it's something that myself and my business partner have had to do more and more over the last few years. We've both got very young families. Anyone that's got kids will know that the time pressures of small children, particularly at weekends and in holidays, on normal busy time, is very pressing. So we've had to effectively work ourselves out of the business and allow our staff to take over day to day, which we've managed to do, I'm kind of pleased to say. And we've managed to kind of grow our business in spite of doing less on the groundwork. And we're now in a position where I'm currently looking at buying another outdoor activity business in Scotland, which is in the latter stages of working. And we're also launching a startup as well, again, which is going to be a national business. The reason I'm telling you all that is because these businesses will be done by other people. I'm going to employ people, and we're going to bring people into these businesses to run it for us. So it's absolutely critical that they understand our culture, they understand our vision, and they are motivated and driven to get the results that we all want. I've got a background and very passionate about personal and team development. Some of our activities fit very well into team building events and providing experiences for businesses and organizations that don't just want fun, they also want to have some growth off of the back of it. They want to have some results in terms of their team performance. And what I'm going to share with you now is effectively, it's a little bit of a survey. I call it the team performance survey. And the idea is that if you've got engaged, happy, and committed staff, then business is a lot easier for the owner, but also it's nicer for them. People want to come to a place where they feel they have responsibility, they feel they can make a difference, and they feel empowered. So as much as I could talk about the importance of giving your staff regular fresh air breaks and enforcing exercise on them and encouraging them to have, clear jobs lists and things to do and structured day, as a business owner, I want all of that, but I also need the business to grow, because if we've got profit in the company, if the business is going places, then we can reward them financially for that as well. And the business is safe and they feel secure in their jobs. If a business is struggling to make money, then staff are going to know that, and they're not going to feel as secure, which ultimately security and reward, I think, is the kind of key drivers for staff. What I've built and what I'm going to share with you is a scorecard. Now, I did put a link to this. If you want to play along at home, as it were, you can do. I'm going to try and pop it in the chat again. So this is it's quite a cool bit of software, which is probably another discussion for another time. But effectively, what this does is a series of yes/no questions. There's 24 of them. I will rattle through things quite quickly because I'm aware of the time constraints here. But I do want you to kind of raise your hand or make a point or ask a question, because this is my hypothesis. My hypothesis is, if a business owner or leader in a company can answer yes to most of these questions, then they will have a high performing team. That's kind of what I believe. And I'd kind of like to share with you the thinking behind the questions, because although you should be able to answer them in a few seconds, it's one of those quick answer. Because if you don't know it's yes, then it's definitely a no. But there is a lot of depth behind it. And given we've got about 15, 20 minutes, I'm not going to pretend to dig really deep, but I will go as far as people want to. And funny enough, we actually have a product off the back end that helps people to answer yes where they currently answer no, and it's a team event that we've been building and running recently. So if the technology works, I am going to screen share, and if you want to play along at home, that link will work for you. Excellent. So I've had to change the format of the quick question a little bit. So if you are playing along at home, you should get the same questions as me in the same order. You can randomize them and a few other little bits and bobs. So effectively, the first question, so they're in 4 categories. The first category is about vision and purpose. It's the idea that you've got something in your organization that drives you forward, a kind of clear purpose to exist, really. There's a consultant and kind of motivational speaker on leadership, a chap called Simon Sinek, and he would say that there's 5 things that you need to think about when it comes to having a clear purpose. And we're not talking one of those boring corporate ones that sit behind a company desk somewhere or in a drawer and never gets kind of read out. This is a living, breathing purpose. I mean, this is a purpose for you. So organize the world's information and make it accessible. Anybody have a guess whose purpose that is? That's Google's. Create products that enrich people's daily lives. Anyone know this? It's Apple's purpose.
Oh, I didn't unmute quick enough.
I know I've got to fly through, but the whole point of a purpose, it's a big thing, it's a grand thing. And the 4 criteria for a really clear purpose is it should be for something. So it should be affirmative and optimistic. It should be inclusive, so everybody can engage with it. It's for suppliers, customers, staff, and even your customers can all contribute to the outcome and the benefit of what you're trying to do. Number 3, it should be service orientated, so for the primary benefit of others. 4th, it should be resilient, so you should be able to endure political, technological, and cultural changes. And finally, number 5, big, bold, and ultimately unachievable. The idea that you'll never quite get there because Google, organize the world's information and make it accessible. Well, there's always more information and we can make it more accessible. It kind of goes on, really. I mean, they've obviously spent a lot of money, I would imagine, Google and Apple, getting their purposes pretty tight. But if businesses forget their purpose, then things go wrong. Do you all remember Blockbuster? The kind of video rental company? Well, you would have thought that their purpose was to make bring big screen entertainment to the home. But they got mixed up a little bit and thought it was about real estate and buying property. And the upstart called Netflix basically started to outcompete and under, beat them to their purpose, really. And Kodak as well, their purpose was to make photography easy and affordable. But somewhere during the 80s, it was one of their R&D team that actually built the first digital camera. that their board turned down the idea, said, this is ridiculous. We're a print and ink company. And Kodak, as a result, lost their market share. And, even though they invented the digital camera, they've not really benefited from it. So do you have a clear vision and purpose for your organization? Really, really important. And hopefully, I believe high performing organizations, it'll be yes. Because the part of this is, could all your staff clearly articulate the results that you achieve for your customer? So do your staff know why they're doing their job? It's all right for the salesperson to be there and talk about the benefits and how it's really important to work with you. But actually, if your delivery staff don't get it, or they don't understand the result that they're trying to give, then things kind of fall down really at point of sale. At New Forest Activities, our purpose is to use outdoor activities to provide fun and enlightenment. That's what we do. We want to entertain people and help them to learn and grow. And all our staff, he says, should clearly understand that and make that part of their daily focus. Another one here. So are your core values clearly defined, and do your staff know what they are? So this is kind of a culture thing, really. I like to think it should be shown at a behavioral level. Your business values, again, they're up on a wall, up on a board, written down, nobody sees them. They become an academic venture rather than a practical venture. Values are lived and breathed. And if your staff know what they are, then they're able to act from them. Again, in our business, we've got kind of 4 behaviors, 4 attitudes, as it were, that we feel are really important. One is passion. We want people to be passionate about what they do and the service that we provide. We need them to take responsibility for the results that they get. We want them to be grateful, express gratitude for the fact that they can come to work, the fact they have got a job, the fact they live in a society where we can enjoy the finer things in life. A gratitude practice is really important to people's mental health and well-being. And finally, kindness. No matter how someone comes at you, if people are angry, upset, if you show kindness and understanding, it really helps. And that's also extended to ourselves as well. The idea that we can be our own worst critics. We can be pretty derogatory to ourselves in our heads. And we remember to be kind. And I kind of wrap all this up with this idea of awareness or mindfulness. People should be mindful of the behaviors that they're showing, and able to call others when they see behavior that doesn't fit into those 4 ideals. Because if you're aware of your thoughts and you're aware of your feelings and you're aware of behaviors, it gives you choice. If you're not, you end up on autopilot, and you tend to create results that are almost unexpected because you're not paying attention to what's going on. So core values clearly defined, and your staff know what they are and act from them. Get a little bit more specific now, really. So, a purpose is one thing, this big thing, this big higher goal. But unless you start to get smart with your goals, unless you start to kind of tie things down into actual things that are going to happen, it's very hard to start taking action. And there's an idea in kind of coaching and development that we reverse engineer our goals. So if our goal is climbing to the top of a mountain by the end of tomorrow, we want to make sure that we were halfway up by the end of today. So we go, well, to know that I'm 100% on track for my goal, where do I need to be tomorrow? So if you have a goal that's 5 years away, you then want to say, well, what does it look like in 3 years? What will halfway towards that look like? And get very, very specific about your plans. We're not to say that plans don't change, but if you haven't got a goal, you don't even know where to start. So goals are really important. They need to be specific, written down, and everybody in your team needs to understand them and be behind them effectively. Again, it's kind of reiterating what I was saying. The big goals are great, but they can be a little bit, they might sound unachievable or too grandiose. So it's again that idea of reverse engineering and say, well, okay, if that's what we need to do in 3 years, what do we need to have done in the next 12 months? And by definition, what needs to be the results that we've achieved in 6 months' time? And we're just kind of getting back to the point where you are now, really, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the presentation. And then I guess the final little piece here on vision and purpose. I don't know if anyone's read a book called The Blue Ocean, but there's the idea that you want to create your own ocean, which effectively is your own niche, your own, the thing that you do that nobody else could possibly do. If you could take your logo and replace it with a competitor's on any of your marketing collateral, you are not in a blue ocean. You are competing with, you're basically creating a product rather than you're commoditizing, your product and your service. You need to have a differentiator, a USP, something that lets you stand out from everybody else. And again, this should be something that everybody in your organization is clear about, and that your audience, your niche as well, become clear about. So the next little section here is about your why. We're digging a little bit deeper into the purpose now, and we're basing this part of the scorecard, really, and the thinking behind it is out of emotional drivers. There was an old way of thinking in terms of psychology that was this assumption that if we could just calm down this raging emotional beast inside of us and just engage with our rational mind, we would get stuff done. Because we know what we want in our heads, we're quite clear, and it's just, if I didn't get so emotional, or my staff weren't so emotional, if we were all rational agents, we would get a result. I think we can all, Freud's probably got a lot to answer for, really, when it comes to this kind of thinking. But actually nowadays there's a lot more of an understanding of how the brain works and how our emotions work. And it's quite clear now that actually it's the kind of emotional centers of us, it's the emotional parts of us that drive behavior. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behavior. It happens like that. So if you want something and you've written it down as a goal, unless there's an emotional reason for achieving it, it's highly unlikely that you're actually going to get it. So if you want to grow a business or you want to earn a certain amount of money, you kind of make it more than that. It's got to be about something deeper. And there's an exercise that you can go through that we run that helps you to kind of find this, but that's the point of the why. And again, understanding the emotional drivers for your staff will allow you to, more easily recruit and retain them. And that's kind of this is the first part of this section, really. This is an interesting one. So if I was a member of staff and worked in a team and I was getting paid the same as the person next to me, but it was clearly apparent that they were putting a lot less effort than me, or they were just weren't as committed, they may be even less skillful, it would demotivate me. I would be frustrated that we were seen as equal people when clearly I'm covering them. So I think it's really important as a business that you have a reward structure that differentiates between low and high performers. A lot of the time, the attention goes to the low performers. Let's make sure they're okay. Let's check they're all right. Let's help them out. But the assumption should be that your business should already have a clear structure. You should already have a clear role, accountability and responsibility. And it's a choice then for them to show up and perform high or low. There are nuances to this, but unfortunately, I'm generalizing, but high performers, because they're just getting on and they behave themselves. It's like the smart kid at school. They just get on with it, and teachers almost forget about them because they're worried about the kids that are disrupting or the kids that are harder. And ultimately what happens is you'll find that high performers will leave your business if they aren't rewarded, and if they feel that you're pandering to people that are low performers. So it's really important to have a reward structure in place which differentiates between the two. And this kind of leads on to that. If your business is clearly flying and you're driving around in posh cars and living the high life, but your staff are still on the same wage as they were 6 months ago or a year ago, or even on just the minimum wage, it's quite demotivating for them, because at the end of the day, they are the people in a properly structured business. It's your staff that are going to grow the business. It's your staff that are going to get the results for you, and they need to really be rewarded for that. And there should be a format for now enabling them to directly benefit in it. I heard once that business is a numbers game played by a team. So if the numbers stack up, we should all reap the rewards of it. This is a little bit more, I guess, of a kind of softer thing rather than the kind of hard and fast financial thing. It's again, there's lots of tools you can use this, but effectively you want to understand everyone's got their own value system, the things that kind of they feel that are important to them. And, if you're living out your values, you're motivated. If you can understand the individual values of your team at a personal level, enables you to connect with them, motivate them, and provide them with a workplace that is really empowering. So it's really important to have some sort of process for understanding your staff. And then kind of linking back to what I started with, do you have an emotional reason to grow your business? If there isn't, it won't grow. There has to be an important emotional reason that you're attached to. And for me, it's about creating choices and opportunities for my children. The more successful our businesses are, the more wealth we can create, the more choices and options I'll be able to give my kids. And I also, as well, would extend that to my team as well and my staff, and they're going to have opportunities to grow. If our business grows, then they get new roles. If we're branching out for the New Forest and going national, so my team members now have got the ability to market multiple companies and be involved in a really exciting growth, and that's the key reason that I want to grow our business rather. And then this is a personal thing again for the leader, your core values and how they relate to your work. Much the same as we want to understand our staff. I guess it's probably even more important that we understand ourselves and what drives us. And if we do that, we might understand why some days we find it really easy to get out of bed. We just jump up and we go. And other days, I can't believe I've got to do that today because something's not quite right. The role that we've chosen for ourselves in the business isn't quite right. So maybe, thinking to Dan Sullivan's work, who, not how. If there's a bit of your work that you don't enjoy and isn't bringing value to you, instead of going, well, how am I going to get better at this? How am I going to learn this? It's maybe like, who do I need to come into this business to help me? Could be a short-term contract, could be a freelancer. But often as entrepreneurs, we try and do it all ourselves. And as a result, miss out on lots of opportunities. We could have just brought in an expert to get it done for us and we would have moved and progressed a lot quicker. There's a heck of a lot of stuff I've just covered. I just want to make sure people are still there. Has anybody kind of got any comments on the first two sections really? So vision and purpose, and then why? I don't want to just fly off into the next section without giving people a chance to take stock or comment really.
I do actually, Sam, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
What I found interesting is, particularly myself, we're talking about what drives people and reward, etc. So I'm not financially rewarded. I don't see that myself as a reward personally. So if I have staff like that, when we're talking about kind of rewards for good work, what else could we use other than?
Well, I think it's you're gonna want to dig into what it is that's important to them, really. So, I mean, time and money almost are the kind of, you think about the core of what, health, time and money, really for me are the kind of some of the core drivers. So you might be just some extra holiday, some extra time off. There's a lot of talk now and a lot of evidence suggests that the 4-day working week is starting to work for a lot of companies.
What a dream.
Giving people the Friday off and 8 till 6 is in the week seems to be working. So I think if it's not a pure financial driver, then you're gonna have to need to speak to people and get under the skin a little bit. And that's the whole values piece, isn't it? Really, if you understand their values, then the rewards can be structured. Funny enough, our staff enjoy shiny kit. They like it if there's some shiny boats that they can use or some bikes they can use. They're having an opportunity to kind of or bring the family down and share. Just take people out on a session and not have to pay for it is something that works for our team as well. So again, it's part of that benefit that people can have from working for you, really.
Yeah, it's just interesting because
that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because I've always found those that don't necessarily have a financial drive almost harder to give them that, because it's the easier motivation, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just nice to have some other ideas. Thank you.
I personally had that as well. I spent the first 10 years of building my business not really worried about the money. As long as I had enough to go paddling and enough to pay my rent,
Yeah.
I was all right. It changed for me when I had kids, because there was then I literally had dependents, and the idea of not having enough to provide for them properly and give them the treats and clothe them nicely and have the time more than anything else. I wanted my weekends back. That was the big thing for me in terms of growing my business. I had to grow it to a point where I could employ enough people so I didn't have to work weekends. That was kind of
have your own time back.
Was absolutely, because that's the thing that we're not going to get back.
Sam, Alice has got a question for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just to say, Sam, I used to work for John Lewis before the new CEO destroyed it. And the fact that everyone's a partner has an enormous feeling within the company. It really is a very, very strong ethos for such a massive company. You don't think it'll work, but it does. With or without a bonus doesn't matter, really. It's the fact that you are all partners.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic model, isn't it? That they've got. I mean, they've got lots of other employee perks and as assets and things as well. I think that employees can have access to
hotels and all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's and the fact that in a world now where retail is really struggling, the fact that John Lewis, as far as I can see, seems to be doing a lot better than some of its competitors that have all but disappeared. There must be something in that. And I think
is holding it up at the moment. The John Lewis partnership is really struggling. But
is that right? Yeah, I was going to say
they close shops up, but Waitrose is holding it up, which is fine. It's all still the same family.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to that point earlier on, the idea that it's a team thing. It's not. We're all responsible for the success or not of this business, and we're all accountable to each other as well, because and that very much is what we do. Funny enough, it's the next point really. We do that quarterly. So we come together as a team and we just remind each other about why this is really important, what the big goal is, and then we go, well, what do we need to do in the next 90 days then to significantly move this forward? And we get very clear, very specific. There's a book, if people aren't readers, it's no good me just throwing titles out at you, but there's a book called The 12-Week Year, which again, it's kind of almost like an action orientated book rather than an academic thing, but that model has really helped us. 90-day plans are talked about quite a lot, but the 12-week year effectively is that, but it's a very nice structure to how you do it. And we've implemented that for the last few years, and we've found it massively beneficial in terms of focus and energy and accountability for people, because then we can review their performance over the last 90 days and project forward, really, and it's just regular. They know it's coming up. They keep their logs, their diaries, their performance plans are all in place. I'm painfully aware I'm about halfway through, and we're going to need to go to a bit more of a Q&A in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to zip through the rest of it. It is all online. It's there for people, and I am open and available to talk people through it, help out. And I've actually got a program and a team day that addresses a lot of this as well. So I'm just apologies for the speed that I need to take going forward, really. Scorecards, massively important. There's going to be 3-4 things in your business that are going to be the key levers to pull, and they should be monitored weekly. Everybody should know them. They should be tracked, and that way you can keep score. What's a good week look like compared to a bad week? How do you know? Without a scorecard, it's really hard to track and monitor. Moving on from that, do your staff have access to and understand these important numbers? Or is it a surprise to them to know how well the business is doing or not? Again, numbers game played by a team. If they're going to play their part, they have to understand the numbers. They have to understand how well you're doing, and then they'll make the right decisions when it comes to quotes and discounts. And if you're going to start to pass responsibility to people, they need to know the numbers in a kind of broad brush way. They need to know their way around a P&L in a simple way to say understand how they can impact stuff. And this is again a big thing for us. Do you give your staff time to create and document processes and systems? Powerful businesses, effective businesses have a way to do stuff. And if you need to train new staff or you're going to have a way of getting stuff done. And if the staff are doing it, then they should document it and have ownership of how things get done. A clear process is an asset. I don't know why they don't appear on balance sheets. They don't yet, but I think they should. Marketing assets, capital assets are all well and good, but actually operational assets and processes are really important as well. Simple stuff done well works. Checklist, to-do list, step-by-step action plans kind of needs to be in place in a high-performing business. And then with the scorecard and with all this in place, you should be able to identify quickly which areas of the business need attention at strategic level. You shorten leads, shorten conversions. Is it the quality of delivery that's the problem? Where's the bottleneck in your business that, if sorted, would allow you to grow? Most people assume they need more leads, more customers, but actually it might be a case of serve your current customers better. It might be a case of improving your conversion rate in your sales funnels. It might not just be about throwing more money at Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever your lead channel is. And then again, back to staff. The final section is on your team. Each role should have a purpose, like a reason for being. It almost sits at the top of the job role. Entertain and keep people safe. That's like the purpose of an outdoor activity instructor. Entertain and keep people safe. Really simple. There's bits more to that to their job role, but that's the purpose. Entertain them, keep them safe. Just a real simple purpose that they can articulate and they understand. Do people know how they're doing, how they're performing? Can they measure their own success? Again, this idea of motivation and well-being comes from a feeling of autonomy and a feeling of power and a feeling of having a choice in your own destiny. If they need to be, the worst thing would be then to come into their monthly or 6 monthly appraisal and say, how did I do, boss? It's like, they should know how they did. They should know exactly how they're doing. It shouldn't be a surprise. Again, do you have a system or process to deal with staff that aren't meeting their targets? How do you help them when they need help? How does it get flagged up to you that someone might need a bit of support or they're not hitting a target? Do they come to you and say, look, I'm really struggling to make the numbers this week. Can you help? Or is it up to you to go, oh my God, we've been missing our sales targets for the last 3 weeks. There's a problem. A system and a process is really important. And the last couple now, I can't remember who said it now, but they say you should work harder on yourself than you work in your job. I think it was Jim Rohn, actually. So the idea is that I want my staff to be more valuable to the marketplace when they leave my business than when they started my business. And in order to do that, they need to continue to learn and grow as people. And so they should be keeping a log of their development, the projects they've completed at work, the reading they've done, the courses they've been on, and have an aspiration for the future as well. And this log forms part of the quarterly appraisals that we do with them. We say, have you got your learning log? What have you been working on? How have you got on? And then last thing, really, clear organizational structure. People shouldn't have 2 bosses, should have 1 report. And everyone should understand who reports to who and how it works. And then finally, this is the bus question. If you are a business owner or the leader and you got hit by a bus, would your business be okay? So we've got here, simply, would your organization continue to run smoothly if you're or any senior member of staff unable to work for 6 months? If it's a small business and the answer is no, it would be well worth doing something to mitigate the risk, because the unseen happens and stuff happens. If you've done that, you get a kind of a score. I've clicked yes on everything, so funny enough, it's 100%. If you wanted to, when you fill that in, you get a breakdown of the sectors and scores. But I'm going to stop share because I'm going to give you guys a chance to come back at me.
Great,
excellent.
Thanks a lot, Sam. As always, lots to think about there. And we really appreciate your time and motivation from all that.
It was a tour de force of the scorecard, really, but that's
No.
come from a program that I've built, which is kind of back to business program. Something I know. I did it with Holly's team at DA Training, and a few more clients since as well. Phil's. It is Jim Rohn. Thanks, Phil.
Just one thing, Sam. I wonder how you feel, because I'm hypersensitive sort of person, as you know. There are a lot of people who are very, very small businesses.
Yes.
So when we're talking about team and everything else, I think also some directors forget they are the team, even if it's just one of you or two of you. And so I wonder how much you feel this can be self-reflective tool as well, if you don't have 100 people like Alice has working for her.
Yeah, it was really interesting, actually. So one of my business mentors described when he set up his business, he actually had 4 desks, because he was aware that as the business owner, he had to wear 4 hats. And I can't remember exactly what they are, but let's say one's sales, one's customer service, one's admin. I can't remember what the last one was, but he literally would have 4 desks. So when he did a certain role, he would sit at that desk. And what he did was he documented exactly what he was doing, because as the business grew and he realized that he couldn't do all of it, when he got somebody in, it may only be part-time for an hour or 2 a week, but they knew what to do because he documented exactly how the job worked. And I think if you want to escape, I mean, don't get me wrong, lifestyle businesses and small businesses are absolutely important to the economy and to the people that run them. But they'll always stay that size unless the business owner is able to start to get help and get support. And it might just be a virtual PA or someone to do the books or the invoicing or chase clients haven't paid, or, you know, you might get a phone answering service just to answer the phone when you're not able to do it yourself. But those little things can cost, you know, a few pounds a week, and actually just free up so much time and space. Because if we're not thinking, nothing's going to change. We have to have time to think about our businesses, and you know, that time to think allows us to keep ourselves mentally in a good place as well, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. Any other thoughts? We've got about 5 minutes left. I think Serena was aiming for the mute button, and Rob's there as well.
Thank you. It was just on the case that you just brought up, Matthew, that I am actually one of those people who is, my business is just me. And, you know, when you were talking about having those quarterly meetings and things, I kind of, in a weird way, have those with myself, but also I get a lot of feedback, and I kind of push for feedback from my clients. And so in a way, they're helping me to develop what else I can achieve. So I kind of use my client feedback as my kind of team extension in a way, type thing. So that's something else that, depending on businesses, obviously, that's something that people can kind of bear in mind.
Yeah, the 90-day plan thing really works. It works quite well as well if you take yourself away from the business and, like, you know, just maybe book in at a hotel if you want to, you know, splash out, but maybe just go to a coffee shop or just somewhere really nice that's not the office to just think. And do your 90-day plan away from where you normally are, if that makes sense. And it feels like an event, and you've booked it out in your diary. Can't be disturbed, because I'm going to do my 90-day plan. And then, because when you come back, then you've got your plan, and then you can enact it, you know. But yeah, it's really important to do that, even when it's just yourself, right?
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Rob, you had a point.
Yeah, it's a question, actually. First of all, congratulations on the Scottish acquisition, Sam. That's great to hear that the business is growing, and I know from the dealings I have with your staff as a supplier of services in a small way to you, how well motivated they are, and they're always on the ball, and they think innovatively, they think out of the box. So that's really good. My business is a one-person business, but I'm also involved in running Lyndhurst Community Centre, and we have a team of 3 staff there. In that kind of environment, it's much more difficult to measure performance. I mean, I guess in your business, as Serena clearly does in hers, you're asking for customer feedback on, did you have a great experience today, etc. And we don't really do that in the community centre. Maybe we should do more of that. But I wonder what your thoughts were on measuring performance in that kind of user support environment.
Okay, so I'm going to make an assumption that they're in different roles. So they're not comparing them, but in their roles, how would you know if they were doing their job at 100%? I mean, we've got this idea in the kind of coaching stuff that I do around team, is what does 100% look like?
Right.
So if you were doing your job to 100%, what does it look like? And that's the question to ask them, really. What does it look like? You know, what's the results that we're expecting? You come to work for X amount of hours a week. What does 100% look like? And that needs to be defined, because once that's defined, you can then decide how close you feel they are to it, or how close they feel they are to it, and it can start to actually be meaningful. And so there will be a way of doing it, but you've just got to have that conversation individually with them to sort of set up some sort of KPI, really, around it. And external measures are one thing, but it's also, I mean, again, I don't know what their roles are. I'm going to hypothesize, but it's, you do need to get some sort of performance indicator, really. Just then, how do they know they're doing a good job apart from you say, oh, well done? It should really be a lot more objective than that.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, a lot of the feedback is from other people going, well, when X went home at the end of their shift yesterday, the kitchen was still full of unwashed coffee cups. It's that kind of thing. But I think your question, asking the staff member what does 100% look like, is a really, really interesting mindset. So yeah, thanks for that, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, you need to kind of, if they're way off the mark, we need to have a chat. But it's not like, oh, great, off you go. But it's because you want to bring, because sometimes with high performers, you might hold them back. You say, oh, I only want you to make I only want to make 20 sales calls a day. They're like, hang on a minute, I can do 40. But you've told them 20 is 100%. Certainly with high performers, you almost want them to set the bar, because you'll be surprised sometimes that they'll pull you along. And they'll offer out more than you thought.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just checking. Are you okay, Caroline?
She's nodded off.
She's gone to sleep, or is she all right?
No, Caroline does occasionally get a bit drowsy in these meetings. So I wouldn't.
That's
worry.
Fine.
I've had that same concern before, and it's not been a problem. So
thank you. Thanks, Phil. So we're coming towards the end, Sam. So thank you very much for what you're doing. And what we will do is continue this conversation, not least next week, because Heidi's going to explore the theme of soft skills, because these phrases get mentioned. And when we're sometimes in very small businesses, we're not quite sure what that means, and does it apply to ourselves, as well as, of course, those of us who have teams, and what all of that is about. So Heidi, are you happy just to take this conversation and others that we've had into a general discussion next week about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense to kind of do a Q&A, really, rather than to build on some of these and give some tangibles. Definitely.
Excellent. So stand by for Heidi's tangibles next week. It will be very exciting. We'll gather again next Wednesday. Thank you so much, Sam, as always. Really appreciate your contribution. And please do join us whenever you can, online, but also join us in person at Spudworks in Sway. They've got an amazing exhibition going on called the New Forest Imaginarium. So come along if you haven't been to Sway, to Spudworks recently, or Art Sway, I think it used to be called. It's a great little place. I'm now on the trustees there, and I'm trying to encourage their interaction with local business. So we're going to take the LinkedIn Local there, and it's going to be very exciting. So do come along and tell all your connections. If we each bring 500 people, it's going to be very exciting. So thanks very much. It's 5 o'clock. Sam, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Good to see you, everyone. Thank you.
Everyone. Bye. Bye.